In this video, we will be going over the World War I Mysteries and Obscurities Iceberg. This iceberg covers strange events that took place during World War I and many different types of stories that have been reported. The Zinman telegram was a telegram from Germany to Mexico during World War I, asking Mexico to invade the US if the US got involved in World War I, in exchange for land in the United States. The telegram was intercepted by the British and was one of the reasons the US joined the Allies in World War I. The Christmas truce took place on Christmas of 1914 when soldiers along the Western Front agreed to a ceasefire during Christmas. In some parts, men from either side came out of the trenches and met in no man's land to exchange gifts. Rasputin was a self-proclaimed holy man who became friends with the Emperor of Russia, giving him lots of power. During World War I, he became increasingly unpopular, which led to his assassination in 1916. There are conflicting reports about his death, but the most common claim is he was led to a conspirator's basement, where he was poisoned by cyanide and later shot. They planned to drive his body back to his apartment so it looked like he came home that night. When there, they went to check on his body when suddenly he attacked them and tried to flee before being shot again, this time dying. Archduke Franz Ferdinand was the heir to the Austrian-Hungarian throne and was assassinated by Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb separatist. This assassination led to Austria-Hungary declaring war on Serbia, pulling in their alliance, which ultimately led to World War I. The Battle of Somme was a 5-month battle that took place in 1916 along the Somme River in France. This battle is one of the bloodiest battles in all of human history, with the losses estimated to be over 1 million. During World War I, the Ottoman Empire feared losing part of their land to the Armenians who lived there, so they went and either killed them or sent them on death marches to the Syrian desert. It is believed that 500,000 to over 1 million Armenians were killed between 1915 and 1917. Even after Armenia was freed, Turkey blockaded food supplies and destroyed crops, causing further starvation. The Schlieffen Plan was named after Alfred von Schlieffen, who was a German general and made a plan to invade France back in 1906. This plan was to go through the Netherlands and Belgium into France instead of charging straight into France. This would allow them to catch France off guard and allow them to take France quicker so that they could focus on fighting Russia. The Schlieffen Plan was attempted in World War I, but Belgium denied Germany entry, which caused the two to start fighting. Britain was an ally of Belgium, so this fighting brought Britain into World War I against Germany. The plan ultimately hinged on too many things going right for Germany, so when there was a stronger resistance on the Western Front and Russia responded faster than Germany expected, the plan fell apart quickly. The Russian Revolution started during World War I in 1917. This saw the Russian people overthrow the monarchy that was in place and bring in a socialist government. The revolution was due to public outcry against World War I when millions of Russian soldiers were dying, so when the revolution took place, Russia pulled out of World War I. Destroy This Mad Brute was a propaganda piece made by the US Army calling Germans brutes and showing them stealing Lady Liberty. This was to get men in the US to sign up for the army. In 1917, 3 young Portuguese children claimed the Virgin Mary visited them 6 times, entrusting them with 3 secrets. The first secret was to see a fire under Earth, which people believed to represent hell. The second secret was that World War I would end and be followed by another war if Russia refused to convert. The third secret, which was not revealed until 2000, is interpreted by some as future persecutions of Christians until they are saved by God. Britain and Arab rebels worked together to destroy the Ottoman railroads at the start of World War I, believing that the railroads were essential to the Ottoman Empire. T.E. Lawrence, a young British officer, supposedly destroyed 79 railway bridges during this operation. World War I being the first large-scale modern war meant that a lot of studies were done on soldiers after the war. Because of this, the British started discovering PTSD for the first time, and at the time called it shell shock. This showed the world the psychological effects that took toll on the soldiers that had to go to war. The Gallipoli campaign was a military campaign by the British, French, and Russians to take the Turkish Straits. The Ottoman Empire was able to hold off, and it is considered a big victory in the Ottoman Empire, even though it eventually led to the Turkish War of Independence, which broke apart the Ottoman Empire. In July 1918, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia and his family were executed by the Bolshevik revolutionaries. Him, his wife, and his 5 children were shot and bayoneted to death before their bodies were destroyed with grenades. The Bolsheviks claimed they only killed the Tsar and claimed the rest of the family were still alive and well. They did not admit to killing the entire family until 8 years later in 1926. Henry Tandy was a British soldier who allegedly came across a wounded 29-year-old Adolf Hitler in France. Henry Tandy refused to shoot the wounded Adolf Hitler, who would go on to lead Nazi Germany in World War II. Belikis was a well-liked Hungarian man who had metal drums in his yard, claiming he was stockpiling gas for the upcoming war. He was later conscripted for the war and left his house in the housekeeper's control. When soldiers were in need of extra gas, his housekeeper offered the barrels, and when they were opened up, they found the bodies of at least 23 young women. The police went to arrest him at a Serbian hospital that he was apparently recovering at, but when they arrived, he was not there. He was never caught, with people all over the world claiming they have seen him. During the Russian Civil War, the Tsar's gold was being transported from Kazan to Omsk, where $80 million worth of gold disappeared along the journey. An Estonian soldier who was part of the troop claims the gold was buried part of the way through the journey, but the gold has yet to be found to this day. The USS Cyclops was a Navy vessel of the U.S. military carrying 306 crew and passengers and 11,000 tons of product to grade ammunition. It set sail during March of 1918 and was never seen again. This is the largest loss of life in the U.S. Navy that does not involve combat. The 1918 influenza pandemic, also known as the Spanish flu, was a virus that spread across the entire globe, killing anywhere from 20 million to 50 million people. Anastasia Romanova was a young daughter of Tsar Nicholas II, who we talked about earlier. She was only 17 years old when the massacre of her family took place, and her remains were discovered and buried in the Cathedral of St. Peter and Paul. The Red Baron, Manfred von Richthofen, was a famous German Air Force pilot who is considered one of the greatest pilots ever and was credited with 80 air combat victories. He was shot down in April of 1918 near the Somme River. Controversy surrounds his death, as the Royal Air Force credited Arthur Roy Brown with being the one to shoot the Red Baron, though historians and ballistics experts believe he was shot instead by an anti-aircraft gun. The Angel of Mons was a story of a supernatural entity protecting the British Army against the Germans throughout different battles. This specific instance is about the Battle of Mons in Belgium during August of 1914. Trench rats were rats that were attracted to the trenches by either rotting food or decomposing bodies. These rats are reported to have bred in the millions and would litter no man's land in the trenches, often eating the bodies. Sergeant Stubby was an American war dog that was granted the rank of sergeant after serving in 17 battles on the Western Front. He would often sniff out surprise attacks and help find the wounded. He was an unofficial mascot for the 102nd Infantry and was assigned to the 26th Yankee Division. The Cottingley fairies come from a set of 5 photographs in which 2 cousins set it up to look like one of them was surrounded by fairies. Some believe the photos were faked, while others believe they were real. One of the cousins ended up coming out in the 1980s admitting the photos were faked using cardboard cutouts. Mercy dogs were dogs that would be used in World War I to help find wounded soldiers and carry medical supplies for the medics. The dogs would also seek out soldiers that were mortally wounded and help to comfort them in their final moments. Mata Hari was a Dutch exotic dancer who traveled around Europe during World War I doing shows. When in France, she was stopped by their army and asked to spy on the Crown Prince of Germany as she would do shows for him. The French intercepted a German message one day and found a description of a German spy that somewhat matched Mata Hari, so she was arrested by the French and executed by firing squad. Many historians today believe that she was innocent. That is it for the top half of the iceberg. I will be doing a part 2 for the bottom half, so subscribe to see that in the future. I also plan to do part 2 of the military bunker here soon. I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been Night Stories, and I'll see you guys next time.